Welcome to the NAC Women for Women virtual event with Misty Copeland and Caryn Campbell. I am Jenny Traslavina. I'm the Director of Development here at NAC, and I'm so excited for this event. As we wait for folks to join, I just want to let you know that at the end of the discussion, we are going to have some time for questions for Misty and Caryn. There are two ways that you can ask questions. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A box. You can type in your question, and Caryn and Misty will see it and read it and answer it. You can also ask your question live. Just raise your hand. I'll be monitoring anyone who raises their hand, and I will call on you and you can ask it live. We are so excited for this event. We will get started now, and it is my great pleasure to introduce NAC's Executive Director, Dr. David Goldstein.
Good evening. Thank you all for attending tonight and for supporting NAC. We are delighted and grateful to have Misty Copeland and Caryn Campbell join us tonight. New Alternatives for Children, or NAC, is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to providing support and services to children with medical disabilities and their families. NAC's mission is to ensure that every child has an opportunity to grow up in a safe, healthy, and nurturing environment. Back in May, at our 2024 Women for Women luncheon, we were treated to an extraordinary conversation between Caryn Campbell and Gilda Squire, detailing the remarkable career of Misty Copeland. Ms. Copeland was unable to attend on that day, and she has generously agreed to speak with us today. Misty Copeland is truly extraordinary. She made history as the first Black principal ballerina at American Ballet Theatre, breaking barriers and inspiring countless individuals with her talent, grace, and dedication. Beyond her remarkable achievements in ballet, Misty is also a New York Times bestseller author with 8 books to her name. Her most recent book, The Wind at My Back, is a heartfelt tribute to her mentor, Raven Wilkinson. In addition to her accomplishments in dance and literature, Misty is a passionate arts activist. She co-produced and starred in the short film Flower, which addresses the critical issues of housing insecurity, gentrification, and the communal power of art. Her leadership in the dance community is widely recognized. Her recent interview with Twala Tharp on PBS Arts Talk is a riveting conversation for anyone interested in the arts. Her commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion in dance led her to launch the Misty Copeland Foundation. This foundation aims to bring greater diversity to ballet, starting with the innovative Be Bold after-school program. Misty Copeland is a visionary leader, and we are incredibly grateful for her presence here today, along with Caryn Campbell, the Executive Director of Misty Copeland, of the Misty Copeland Foundation. Misty, Caryn?
Hi.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes,
and thank you for that really appreciate it.
Hello, Misty.
Hi. I've seen you all day, but it's great to see you this evening.
It is. It's so nice to see you. And I'm sorry you missed the event, which was really lovely. But I'm excited for us to have this conversation so we can hear firsthand about you as an author. And we know that this NAC luncheon typically encompasses a conversation about a novel or a book. So I'm excited to have everyone hear a little bit from you about The Wind at My Back. But I thought maybe we could just start with you talking about why you decided to write this particular book, and what compelled you to go in this direction.
Yeah. From the beginning of my journey into the arts world, into dance and into ballet, has really stemmed from having incredible teachers, like support from teachers and mentors in my life. So that's really been the base and at the backbone of who I am as a woman, who I am as an artist. And I think that's really supported my success as a professional dancer. And so it just made sense to write this book, not just because mentorship is so important to me. Mentors have been important to me. Being a mentor to others is important to me, but in particular, the relationship that I built with Raven and meeting her at a very critical time in my career that just completely changed everything for me. I guess I was about 26 or 26, 27, I think, when I met her. And I was in the midst of my, career at American Ballet Theater. And I had recently been promoted to soloist, but was really struggling to find my voice and my identity as a dancer within the company, even though I had been there since I was 17 years old. But, being the only Black woman, for the first 10 years of my career in the company, and then one of, less than a handful throughout, it just, struck me early on the fact that I didn't have a lot of history, a lot of really documented history. There's a long history of Black people within dance and within ballet in particular, and especially women, but there's not a lot of documented history. And so one night I was at home. I think I might have been watching, I don't know if it was a DVD or PBS or something, and this documentary came on about the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo, which I was so fascinated by. It was really, that was like the company that brought ballet to America and made it a thing. And almost towards the end of the documentary, this Black woman, this elegant, strong, graceful Black woman came onto the screen, and she started speaking about her experiences dancing with the company. And I had no idea a Black woman ever danced with this company. And it was in the 1950s. And I just became completely fascinated with her story, and felt, just such a strong connection that I felt like I had this responsibility to carry out all of the accomplishments that she didn't have the ability to do because of the situations that she was in, with, the racism in that time. And so I was doing everything I could to learn more. I mean, there was no Google, I don't think, at the time. And so there was not much I could do to find out about her story. I was asking, around at American Ballet Theater, and I got little snippets here and there. And then my manager, Gilda Squire, who a lot of you might have met at the luncheon, she reached out to kind of put feelers out there to see if Raven was alive and if she might live, where she would be living. And we found out she lived a block away from me. And that started the beginning of this amazing relationship. And she completely changed my life. She gave me a different hope, where I felt like I was alone. I didn't have a lot of support, just in terms of, within the ballet community. There were, I don't know, 3 or 4 Black ballet dancers that I knew, and we were, had strong relationships, but no one like her with that history and with the career that she had with the Ballet Russe, being a soloist as a Black woman in the 1950s. And, once she passed away, there was just so much to share, the inspiration, all of the stories that she shared that got me through really difficult times. I truly believe that had I not met her and, built this bond and relationship with her, I don't think I would have ever been promoted to principal dancer. She really was there with me every step of the way, pushing me to keep going and keep striving. And I just felt like I was continuing on this legacy that she began.
Could you share one of the stories? Because I find it's so interesting to me, that this woman who did so much but no one knew about was able to help you, so many years later, to get where you became, what you became. So
Yeah.
it would be great to hear something.
Yeah. She was really good about, she would never tell the same story twice. She had so much to share, and, you could get on the phone with her and she would talk for over an hour. There's no way that a conversation was going to be less than an hour. So you really had to say, okay, I've got the time to sit down and really talk to this. it's, the type of mentor that she was, was not like someone who was, coming to my performances, which I found out when I met her that she had been coming to every one of my performances since I joined the company when I was 17 years old and
Wow.
supported me from afar.
Mhm.
But she never, which is so typical, and it's not a bad thing. It's kind of part of the tradition, I guess, of the ballet community and culture, but she would never come and say like, well, these are the things you need to work on. And, this is what I noticed. And so, it was always just, I enjoyed the performance. And then she would share a story about what may have happened to her that was similar to what I was experiencing and the struggles that I would have. I mean, I remember, she shared some that were light stories just about like, the first auditions that she had and Freddie Franklin being there at the audition and really being the first person to show interest in her and her talent. But just her honesty. I remember, in that audition, I think they had asked her if she would change her last name to a Russian name so that people wouldn't even be able to question what her identity was, or it would kind of be more ambiguous. And she made it very clear when they asked her to join the company, which was such a big deal because she was the first and only Black woman, that she said, no, I am an American, which was very important to her. I'm an American and I'm a Black, an African American. And if I were to be asked that question by someone when we are on tour, I will answer truthfully, but I will not, change my name. But she just made me feel that, it's empowering to own who you are, your individuality, and not be ashamed of that and have to change who you are in order to fit into an art form like this. And it's okay to be the first. It's okay to be different. But, there were many times when I would go to her and in her mind, she made it so simple. But to me, it seemed so like this big hurdle and this big obstacle that I felt like I couldn't overcome. But, there were times I remember saying to her, I don't understand why I've been overlooked for this role, as I'm a soloist and it's a soloist role. And all of these women who are soloists are cast to perform this role and I'm not. What should I do? And she just said, well, go in there and ask why you're not being cast for it. Like what is it that I need to work on? What are the things, what can I do to be better prepared if you don't think I am to perform this role? And she said, you're absolutely not the first to go in there and ask for a role. So go in there because you deserve to, as a soloist, you should be getting this opportunity. And I remember going in there and having the conversation with my artistic director, and it literally, I had been overlooked, which has been the case for a lot of African-American artists throughout history and especially within the ballet world. And so it was just, these little nudges from her that made such huge changes in the trajectory of my career.
That's incredible. Like, who did you talk about your process for writing the book? Who you worked with, how it came about? I know this is your 8th book, so has it become easier? There's a lot of questions, but is the
No,
process different each time?
it hasn't become easier, but yes, it's so fulfilling in so many ways, and it's so similar to me to, it's artistry, it's creativity, it's using your imagination and pulling from life experiences, all the things that I do within my career and within my own craft. And so, but what was so special about this process and this book was that I was writing it with one of my mentors, Susan Failshill, who has been a mentor of mine since I was, I don't know, in my early 20s, being chair of the board at American Ballet Theater for as long as she was, and just being a Black woman that was in my corner. So to be able to come together, we both had a very special relationship with Raven. So we both had different perspectives and ideas about how the world should receive her story. And so it was a combination of us just coming together, and also with Susan's experience of being a part of the ballet world in a different way, and as a Black woman, but with a different lens and a different perspective. And so the process was really, I mean, we've known each other so well. So there wasn't like getting familiar, which it has been the case for a lot of my books. You know, I always have a co-writer, and someone who's really shaping the stories that I have to share, and my experiences. But it was a little bit easier with Susan, again, because we've known each other for so long. So I really handed over a lot of journal entries and things like that I've written throughout my life and throughout my time of knowing Raven, which that's something that I've always done, is write in journals, and they've helped me to document and kind of bring things together when I am writing different books of mine. And then we'd sit together and we'd talk, or she'd, send over a list of questions based on, filling in things in the storylines from what I had sent her. And then she was really just there to kind of shape it, and I think also fill out the more historical parts of the book. But it was such a beautiful collaboration to be able to write about a mentor of mine with a mentor of mine, these two incredible Black women that have influenced and inspired me in so many ways. But yeah, it was very different from most of my books, again, because it's kind of building this rapport, or even sometimes, I think back to one of my children's books, Bunheads, whom I've never even met some of these, authors and illustrators who I'm collaborating with. Like, I may talk to them on the phone, or more recently, because we're doing Zooms and things, I might meet them over Zoom, but some of them, it's really like over email, and me just kind of, sending again, my writings and things like that, and having them shape it. So this was a very special experience.
It's such a beautiful book. I love the blending of the historical from Raven's perspective, and then blending it with yours. I just thought that was it was special. It was very
Thank you
special.
so much. Yeah, I feel like it was literally, it was like a second memoir of mine, and it was kind of these two memoirs, Raven's and mine, and our two lives, kind of the history of hers, and kind of some of my background, and then how our lives and stories kind of collide and come together, and then the outcome I feel like was this incredible success of my career that she's a part of, and the photo on the book, on the cover, just says so much, because that photo was, to me, it was literally like the passing of a torch. She wasn't able to perform on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera House for so many reasons throughout her career. And for me to be performing Swan Lake for the first time in New York City, the first Black woman to perform the role at American Ballet Theater, and have Raven walk onto the stage and hand me my flowers at the curtain call. And I just kind of stepped back and walked, it was like, this was her moment. And she fluttered her arms like a swan. And it was like, that was her Met moment, that it was just so incredible. So to have that captured on the front of the book was perfect.
It looked perfect, actually. It was a beautifully captured photograph. It's really lovely. I wanted to ask about your other books, because you've written a number of children's books, and what led you to go in that direction instead of maybe, doing something else, some other form.
Oh, they're the most fun. They're the most fun. Like, I'm one of 6 children. I'm very close with my siblings, and I've always wanted a big family, and I've always just felt such a connection with young people, whether it's on the stage or after, backstage, at the stage door, or when I'm out, doing speaking engagements. I just feel such a bond and a responsibility to that, audience and the next generation. I really feel like it's our responsibility to share all the things that we've learned, mistakes, all, so that they can be better than us. And so that's always what I'm thinking of when I'm writing these, children's books, picture books. The first was not something that I saw coming. It was with the incomparable Christopher Myers, who I wrote Firebird with, and he illustrated and he wrote it with me. And he's had such an incredible career, and his father had an incredible career writing books. But I think he kind of set me off on the right foot, because I saw the way that he approached creating the idea and the story, and it was so organic and so beautiful. So I felt like, oh, this can be the path for how I move, with more books, if that's, what the opportunity presents. And so, the first time that Christopher and I met, I think we were at Cafe Luxembourg, one of my favorite places. my offices. And we sat there for hours just getting to know each other. And of course, Raven came up because she was such an inspiration to me. And she became, kind of the backstory for the book, or the inspiration. And it was really about, that book became about mentorship. And, he hung out with Raven and I, and she just inspired and so many people. But it made me just understand just the power of being able to reach that audience. And so I've continued on. I have Bunheads, that was really based on my experience as a young person coming into ballet and being in a diverse setting, and the power of being with different people from different cultures and different communities, and how that can open your eyes as a young person to so many possibilities. And so now Bunheads 2 is on its way. We're almost done with that.
That's exciting.
Yeah, there will be many more picture books and children's books in my future.
Well, I have to say that this is a good segue into talking about the foundation and your work with the foundation, because having seen you with young people and how they gravitate to you and you have that same effect on them, I could see how writing children's books or working with young people would speak to you. So I just wanted to ask, in your words, like, how you thought about starting the Misty Copeland Foundation and having the signature program Be Bold, and why that program in particular, if you want to talk about it a little bit.
I've never looked at I feel so fortunate to have the life and career that I have, coming from my background. I come from a single parent home, not often having a home, being houseless for a lot of my upbringing, and then finding ballet at a community center at an after school program. And I've never, that's never escaped me. Like, that's always stayed with me throughout my journey, throughout all the successes, that there's so much power in having access to a program like that, what it means for a little brown kid. And, it's just inspired me to show the power of art, and to show the power of dance, and that it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what you look like, that it can help you to, become a fuller person, and have experiences that you might not, have had you not been exposed to it. And so to me, it wasn't like, of course, I've had incredible success as a ballerina, but to me, the most that, that I feel like I've gotten out of being a part of this art form is the person and the human that I've become. And so that's what inspired me wanting to start the foundation. And I've never looked at my career as, being on stage as being the end point. I've always looked at it as a jumping off point to do so many things, because my mission and goal has always been to bring dance and ballet in particular to as many people as possible. And so with the foundation, that's really what we want to do. And we're working on other programs outside of the Be Bold program. But as the signature program, it's really developed around my experience, which was such a beautiful, inviting diverse experience of coming into ballet. And so that's what we're doing here in New York City, in the Bronx and in Harlem, at community centers through an after school program. It's free, which was what my experience was. And I've really been intentional about developing the framework to suit these communities that we're going into, so that they see teaching artists and musicians who look like them, that might even come from their community, and really just setting them up for success, so that it's not this kind of foreign European art form. It's this beautiful base of the ballet technique, but so many other things that are layered on top that will really set them up to become leaders in their communities. Because this isn't, a professional ballet school. This isn't about creating professional ballet dancers, though that would be amazing if that happened at some point. But it's really to give them the tools to be leaders in their communities, and to have agency, over themselves and their lives.
Well, if anyone wants to learn more about the foundation and be bold, they can go to our website and see mistycopelandfoundation.org and check it out. But I wanted to go back a little bit to your mentoring. Like, you've had amazing mentors in your life. Have you been mentoring others? Like, has that become part of who you are, seeing as you've had these amazing mentors yourself?
Yeah, it's happened really naturally from a young age. It's amazing to, and also you feel old, but it's amazing to see when young people, and one in particular, Erica Lull, who has been in the Corps de Ballet at American Ballet Theatre for many years. She actually just left and she's going to National Ballet of Canada. But a young Black girl who I met, I think she was about 12 years old, and I started mentoring her. She was at the Houston Ballet at the time. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like a flash went by and her locker was next to mine and she was in the company. And then all of a sudden, you're a grown woman now. And now you're like, going off and doing your own thing. But I've been mentoring young people, and specifically within the JKO school, which is American Ballet Theatre School, the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis school, young people that I've, in particular, Black dancers, of course, who gravitate towards me, that feel that they don't really know how to navigate in a space where, it wasn't made for them to exist in or succeed in. And so they naturally come to me for advice. And, but I've had, dancers from all over the world that write me letters and I stay in touch with. And again, I just think that it's so important, not just within the arts and not just within ballet, but, as human beings, that we're passing on that knowledge and that information to the next generation. It's just such a beautiful thing. And I feel like I've always had these types of relationships with my elders. There was a point where I'm like, this at 20, 25 years old, I shouldn't be losing half of my best friends, but it's because they were all over the age of 70. And it's so beautiful to have those types of relationships, those intergenerational relationships that I encourage so many young people to explore.
Can you share with us a piece of advice that you've given that one of your mentees said was meaningful to them, or shaped the career path or the direction or thought process that they went on to have?
Yeah, I mean, well, advice that, so much advice that I've gotten, is something that I'm always giving on to those that I mentor. But one of my mentors, who is now the artistic director of American Ballet Theatre, Susan Jaffe, I remember, her coaching me and being in rehearsals with her, and just having this conflict of, how do I kind of get over this barrier? Am I not reaching these heights because of my race? Is it because of, what is not getting me there? And I felt like there was just so much outside noise coming in and distracting me. And, whether it was coming from a biased place or not. And she just said to me, you have so much power as you and as a person, to not let other people's words define you, to not let other people's words, you know, have power over you. And that's always stuck with me. And that's something that I'm constantly, you know, giving to those, or, you know, saying to those who I'm mentoring or having conversations with, or if they ask me for advice, that to me is a powerful, powerful one.
I feel like watching you as a Black woman, watching another Black woman, that sometimes we don't realize that we have a voice.
Mm,
So the fact that you can give that to others is
yeah,
incredibly powerful.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
really powerful.
Thank
So
you.
before we go to the questions that we might have, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your other projects and things that you're doing, because you are very busy.
I, yeah, I know there's so much going on. I'll keep it short because I know we can get some questions in there. Yeah, I mean, again, everything is really connected to the same goal. It's to bring ballet and dance to the masses. And how can we do that? You know, through the foundation, through my production company, Life in Motion, which, you know, earlier we were talking about Flower, my short film. But, you know, whether it's through, you know, film and television and media, which I think has so much power and impact on society and on our communities, and so much influence, what better way to reach as many people as possible than through those mediums? So there's so many films and television shows and documentaries and uh, animated projects and things that we have in the works and in development that we're working on. And then, of course, Greatness Wins is my athletic wear line that I started with Derek Jeter. You know, that's really empowering people to own who they are as athletes. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a professional athlete or that that's your goal, but that you really have ownership over who you are and your health and your wellness and your life, and that this clothing is really reflective of that and really celebrates you. But that's really, I don't know, there's so much happening in my life. I have a son who's 2 years old, and he's wild and he's crazy, and there's many projects that I'm constantly working on that are really exciting, again, that revolve around the same mission.
Yeah. Well, your idea of you know, social justice, and kind of it informs a lot of your work, um,
Yes.
which is, you know, amazing, because you can see the through line in all that you do, you know, which is really amazing. And I'm hopeful that people will get to see Flower like at
Thank
some point
Yes,
soon.
soon. We're working on it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go. I have one question in the Q&A. What has been your favorite role to dance as a soloist?
As a soloist, well, okay, so oh gosh, I can't remember. I would just say that, like, throughout my career, I've never been someone that's, you know, kind of held on to a particular role and been like, oh, that's my favorite. Maybe I got this from Prince, like working with him and touring with him, that he never, it was always like, what I'm working on now or what's coming next is what my favorite is. And so I feel like I feel like that's always been my thought process. So whatever role I was doing in the moment, I would completely immerse myself in, and whether or not it was, I'd convince myself that it was. So, you know, as a soloist, I love doing the Peasant Pas de Deux and Giselle. But as a principal dancer, I love the more dramatic and theatrical roles. It had a lot of acting in it. So Romeo and Juliet, you know, being Juliet was probably like my ultimate like favorite role to perform.
Oh, that's interesting. That's right. I think you do have to share a little bit more about working with Prince now that you've brought his name up, because
Brush over that.
my good friend Prince.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, he was another mentor of mine, and was such a big part of my evolution as an artist. I started working with him when I was still a soloist at American Ballet Theater, and he saw something in me that a lot of people, I feel like, or maybe didn't say to my face, but hadn't. And he just saw potential, and he invited me to come on tour with him. And whenever I was, in an off season with ABT, I would join him, and he really challenged me as an artist. I was so used to being so, coached and prepared, and having to look like the person next to me, which is just a part of what you do when you're in the court of ballet, or even just being a part of the ballet world. You're kind of emulating these ballet superstars that have come before you. But he really made me think about what it was to go on stage, and what improvisation was, and going, performing to his songs. And he would just say, go out there and just do what you do. And I'm like, I'm not used to improvising. I'm told where every brow hair goes in the ballet. So it was such a beautiful partnership with him, that just allowed me to grow so much as an artist.
That's incredible. Oh, we have another question. What advice would you give to young girls of color who are trying to find their voice, but finding it hard to?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a broad question, but I feel like in particular in dance, as a young person of color, that it's so important to find your community and find your people, or if not, I mean, find people who are going to support you and nurture you. I often see young people in dance who have an idea of where they want to be, and it's not bad at all to have dreams and aspirations, and say, like, this is the company I want to dance with, and if that's not the company, then I don't want to do it. But there's so many other opportunities out there, and I feel like it helps you to find who you are and your voice when you're in an environment where when you're seen, and you're being nurtured and pushed to grow, rather than just kind of pushing yourself into an environment where they don't really care if you're there or not, and then you completely lose all sense of self. And so, I think that it's really being open and being able to adapt to what the right fit is for you.
That's a great answer. And I'm just wondering, do you feel you've been very vocal about being a Black woman in a white dance world? And do you feel like through your voice and maybe others that there's been any change in terms of ballet and where it is now?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been so many generations of Black dancers and leaders and, advocates who have been pushing for our stories to be heard, and told on the stage, and not even just ours, but more diverse, stories, that I think are so important with keeping this art form alive. But I'd say that, the most change that I've seen has really been throughout the pandemic, and post George Floyd, that I feel like people really kind of understood the importance and the impact that it's having, not just even on us as Black people, but so many people are, that are being impacted by the way that we are treated, or not involved and not included. And just the importance of representation. I feel like I've been fortunate to have the career that I've had with ABT, and to use that platform to bring other people's stories up, like Raven's, because those stories are equally as important, if not more, for people to understand, the path of dancers of color, and the impact that they have had on the history of dance that's not often told.
And in terms of women, have you seen a shift there in terms of not just dancers, but backstage choreographers, artistic
Yeah.
directors,
Absolutely. But it definitely comes when you have women in power that are championing those voices. But I've definitely, seen it. I mean, maybe it was almost a decade ago. I know ABT started a choreographic workshop that was specifically for women. I think I was in that first iteration of that. Susan Jaffe was with me in that iteration way back when she was still just a choreographer and teaching here and there.
Right.
that, you know, they were really, you know, kind of pushing and empowering for women to be on that trajectory. But I have seen a shift and a change, but the work will never end, and there's still so much more to do.
Right. We see that out in the world as well.
Yes, we do.
So you said that Bunheads 2 is coming out soon, and any other books that we should know about that are being planned or might be next?
There's one in very early stages that I'm working on. It's a middle grade book. I don't know how much I can talk about it, but it's really, you know, the inspiration is really behind you know, the inspiration I get from young people that write to me, and how I respond to the questions that they have that, you know, really spark a lot and inspire a lot of the work I'm doing as well. So it's really kind of a book about, you know, just that kind of relationship, and mentees of mine from afar, or fans that write me letters, and how I interact with them and respond to it. So I love this age range, you know, like the middle grade and below. Of course, I love writing the adult books, but they're just so inspiring to be able to write to that audience.
That's great to hear. You know, I don't think I've ever asked you this. Have you ever thought about choreographing yourself or had any interest in that area?
No, absolutely. Like, some people are meant to do things. I am not meant to be a choreographer. You know, and I think that it's something that's important that we talk about, because I think that a lot of the time people just assume that professional dancers, like the next step is to go on to be a teacher or to go on to be a choreographer. And this is something that we both are learning within the Be Bold program at the Misty Copeland Foundation, is how much it takes to be a responsible educator, and that just because you're a professional dancer doesn't mean that you have the tools or will be a good teacher for young people. And I feel the same way about being a choreographer. But I did try my hand at it. As I told you, I took, you know, I was a part of that initial women's choreographic workshop at American Ballet Theater when I was fairly young, and I choreographed on a group of male dancers who I was so fortunate to work with. They were ABT dancers, and my piece premiered on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera House at Lincoln Center, and I was scarred by this. And so one of my lead dancers went on stage and forgot the entire piece and stood there. And I was like,
no,
never do this again. If that's not fine. It wasn't a great piece anyways, but I was like, I think I'm done with this.
That's fantastic. So I think we have time for one more question in case anybody would like to ask anything, although I think that's a great well, you know, you're not choreographing, but you also have done some great interviews and been, you know, had segments or shows that you've kind of choreographed in a way. So,
that is if you want to look at it that way, okay.
I'm going to stick with that one. I don't think, Jenny, we have any more questions.
I don't see any. So thank you. And here is David.
With that, Caryn, that in our business, we call that a reframe, what you just did. So thank you. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Misty, your grace and honesty and the way you pay homage to your mentors is awe-inspiring, and there's a lot to be learned from that. We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such an honor.
Honors all us. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.